This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I'm going to ask you a series of control questions.
All right, stay with me. I know how this sounds, but I've matched these numbers to the dates of every major global disaster for the last 50 years in perfect sequence.
Are you aware of an impending attack?
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan.
I mean, have a listen to yourself. I know.
It sounds pretty crazy.
I know.
I mean, for you.
I'll repeat the question.
We're way beyond the bounds here, John. We don't have a frame of reference. There could be multiple meanings to consider.
I was up all night going over this. I went through that list again and again, and I tried to fault it, and I couldn't.
So what are we calling this? Synchronicity?
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order. Everything becomes chaos.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole.
Memory thread 1. Listen to the following passage.
You have the sight now, Neil. You are looking at the world without time.
The function of the one is now to return to the source.
Stand by to initiate pattern recall.
Go for pattern recall.
You haven't answered my question. Interesting. That was quicker than the others.
Is this a red flag exercise?
That is correct. Welcome back.
The topic of this video is symbolism in the media and its relationship to predicting future events. The conclusions in this video are completely my own and are based upon my own research and interpretations. I want to make it very clear that this information is provided only as a blind prediction and a thesis. If you're unfamiliar with symbolism in the media, you may find much of my analysis insignificant. I've attempted to explain the material in the most logical fashion. However, you're encouraged to educate yourself on symbolism in the media and how it pertains to predicting future events. Over the past several decades, we've seen media symbolism take a variety of forms: visual, auditory, subliminal, and contextual. There are two overwhelming elements to this symbolism. The first is a political context, which helps to acclimatize the public to a certain viewpoint or situation. For example, in the decade leading up to 9/11, we saw an increased amount of movies and TV shows that deal with airline terrorism and terrorism in general. The second and least understood is the occult symbolism embedded into live-action movies, animations, TV shows, political events, and much more. What you'll find when you start looking into this is that major events are being shown to us long before they're carried out. The scope of this topic alone is far too big for me to cover in any real detail in this video. I would suggest searching 9/11 symbolism on the internet for more background. I'll briefly cover two examples in order to provide you with the context for this video. The first example is, of course, September 11th, 2001. As we know, George Bush Sr. made his speech entitled "Towards a New World Order" on September 11th, 1990. The Pentagon's construction first began on September 11th, 1941. The expiry date on Neo's passport in the movie The Matrix, which came out in the year 1999, says September the 11th, 2001. And the Simpsons episode made clear reference to the date and location in their 1997 episode featuring New York. This short clip shows us the location and the date. The editors of The Simpsons continue to play a huge role in all of this, as you'll see later on in the analysis. The Lone Gunman's pilot episode is another example. The first episode, entitled Pilot, aired on March 4th, 2001. The plot involved the hijacking of a plane, flying the plane into the World Trade Center in New York, and then blaming the attack on another country in order to start a war on terror. Looking around on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet, you'll find countless other examples and references leading up to September 11th, 2001. You'll find symbolism in bills, Windows fonts, card games, and much more. A variety of clocks have also been utilized in order to show the numbers 9 and 11. It is clear that having this information analyzed before September the 11th would result in one being able to predict the date, time, location, and event of 9/11. On top of this, several researchers predicted isolated aspects of the attack before 9/11.
Supposedly, a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden, took a television camera crew with him, went into Osama bin Laden's hideout, interviewed him and his top leadership, his top lieutenants and colonels and generals in their hideout. This is a CNN reporter with a camera crew. And he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it. When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Point is, if any terrorism comes, it's from this government. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now, and sits on the board of Iridium Satellite, he's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system.
Okay, so consider this, alright? I predicted 9/11 to the day. How did I do that? Well, I used a little bit of politics and a little bit of Kabbalism, and I mixed the two together. I knew W would be president because W has a significance. And I knew that this would occur on 9/11 because I knew 9/11 had significance. So consider this. On 9/11, which is Tuesday, American Flight 11 crashed into the Twin Towers, okay? Christening these twin obelisks with blood, with 92 passengers. 9 plus 2 equals 11. I'm starting to sound like Tex Mars. George H.W., which H.W. means the Emperor of the Fallen Angels, announced there will be a new world order for the first time publicly on 9/11. And this is where I came up with the date. I mean, it seemed pretty obvious.
A more recent example of symbolism in the media was seen with the Deepwater Horizon explosion and subsequent oil spill. In the movie Knowing, Nicolas Cage is watching a news story about an oil rig exploding in the Gulf of Mexico. This is the event and location. He immediately looks at his clock as it changes to 12. Noticing the Japan reference, we learn that 12 in Japan is 10 in the Gulf. Placing the 10 o'clock time in the Gulf, it matches almost perfectly, as the Deepwater Horizon was said to have exploded at 9:45 p.m. Referencing the date the movie came out, March 20th, 2009, we can jump forward 13 months to the day and you'll find the exact date the Deepwater Horizon explosion occurred on. In this short clip, it was possible to predict the date, time, location, and event of the Deepwater Horizon disaster over a year before it happened. So the question is, using these past patterns of symbolism, is it possible to predict a future event? Is there information out there right now that can point us to an as yet unclear situation? If someone started looking at media today, would they pick up on the correct symbolism, or would they only see things according to their own imagination? In order to find and decode a possible meaning, we must get into the minds of the architects behind such events. We can do this by studying their rituals and that of the events in which they're responsible. Once we do this, it's possible to decode the symbolism and arrive at a possible conclusion concerning the next major ritual event.
We've been saying all day that it is very, very reminiscent, of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And after the attack on Pearl Harbor, guess what we did? We went back and found out that, yes, the evidence was there. We should have known. And again, I think what we're going to see, even in this instance, this Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, is very much the same kind of thing.
And staying on that subject, when we talk about a massive intelligence breach here, the fact that no intelligence picked up a warning that this attack may have been coming, when you hear the U.S. officials saying they are already looking in the direction of Osama bin Laden, do you think they're looking in the right place?
I think so. Matt, the sophistication of this attack, the fact that it was elaborately planned, flawlessly executed, and as audaciously conceived as it was, all that evidence points in one direction. So until something else happens, you clearly look for your leading suspect. That's Osama bin Laden.
We first go to May 2nd, 2010, in which The Simpsons aired the episode To Surveil with Love, Season 21, Episode 20. This episode contains an outrageous amount of symbolism, and therefore we will be analyzing the episode in great detail chronologically. Notice that the episode aired one day after May Day. Those of you familiar with May Day will find this of key importance. In the 2 weeks leading up to May Day, we have the Waco siege, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Columbine and VTech shootings, and much more. Notice too that when you're in trouble, you call 911 when you're on the ground. In contrast, when you're in the air, you call Mayday. Notice the ground and air, or as above so below theme, already being inferred. The opening introduction is a spoof lip sync to Kesha's Tick Tock. We first see the school music teacher conducting in front of some key numbers. I won't read into this though. You can look back on the numbers after our analysis and see if you find them significant. The episode itself points us to time, and Marge even makes clear reference to the Tick-Tock theme in the introduction. Time will be of fundamental importance throughout this episode. The first scene in Moe's bar shows banners in the background that read isotopes, radiation, and atoms. This refers us to a nuclear attack of some sort. The next scene highlighted is in the classroom, where we see a calendar going from Sunday to Saturday, and not Monday to Sunday. This is of utmost importance, as the Sunday to Saturday format can now be associated with any calendar references we see. The plot of the episode involves Mr. Burns ordering Smithers to plant radiation in Homer's duffel bag. This later results in a police state in Springfield with cameras on every corner. Homer is next at a train station with the radiation-filled duff bag.
Now, the best mac and cheese I've ever had is at a bowling alley in Ogdenville.
Ogdenville was also referenced in another Simpsons episode called Marge vs. the Monorail, Season 4, Episode 12. In the episode, Ogdenville was a town that suffered a monorail disaster similar to the one Springfield later averted. As we recall in the monorail episode, Burns is again shown dumping nuclear waste. Both of these episodes strongly resonate train-related disasters and radiation. Going back to the train station scene with Homer, an April calendar is clearly visible in the background. I'll refer to this as the Homer calendar from now on. We'll go into the calendar analysis later. Homer then exits the train station, leaving his bag unattended. The lady who finds the bag appears to be a reference to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Remembering Neo's passport in the movie The Matrix, with the passport expiry date of 9/11/2001, the message was, Neo isn't flying after 9/11. The Jacqueline Kennedy appearance could be referring us to the fact that she was not in office with her husband after the 22nd. The bag is then found at 3:35 p.m. The clock hands also refer us to 7 and in between the 3 and the 4. This may also be a reference to 7/7 or to 7:34 p.m. The bomb squad then steps in and waits until 6:55 p.m., at which time they choose to explode the nuclear bag intentionally at the train station. The countdown also only goes from 5 to 4. The next scene is one of the most important parts of the episode. Notice as the bomb explodes, the city layout is completely symmetrical. Every car, tree, mountain, and building is a clear mirror image from left to right. It's at this point that I want to stop and cover a theme regarding this future event. It seems that the next best thing to actually doing another 9/11 on 9/11 is to do a mirror image of the event. We know how important mirror images are in rituals of this magnitude. This may also explain why we still see so many 9/11 references even after September the 11th, 2001. Going back to the explosion now, the clock on the train station survives the blast and flies into Homer's backyard. The clock is still at 6:55 p.m. and sticks out for everyone to watch. What numbers do we see? The clock itself is in the shape of a 10. We also have an 11 and a 6. But look closely. The clock is associated with the explosion scene. The scene itself is a mirror image, so let's do the mirror image of the clock. And here we begin to decipher the intended meaning of the scene. The numbers we now see are 9, 11, and 01. That's 9/11/2001. So the explosion event is shown visually as a mirror image of 9/11 itself. They're literally stamping a 9/11/2001 on the next event. We'll build on this analysis later when we discuss the calendars. Moving on, we see references to a nuclear choo-choo, political themes involving an eroding constitution, and a resulting justified 1984-style security state with cameras on every corner. When the cameras are in place, we see our second calendar behind Chief Wiggum. This calendar appears earlier in time compared to the Homer calendar. As Maggie leaves the scene, we're shown an odd-looking map. We'll skip this analysis and come back to it later when we discuss a location. Next, we have Mo pausing and playing the Weather Channel. Looking at the numbers that appear, when we group them together, we get 715 and then 719. Assuming they are times on a clock, in the video there's a 4-second difference, while in real time there's a 4-minute difference. This may prove significant later on. Finally, we have another reference to a calendar. This is a rather elaborate scene, so let's break it down. The calendar is identical to the one shown in the middle of the episode with Chief Wiggum in the foreground. These are two separate scenes with Ned in front of the calendars. However, look at the difference between the two shots. The corkboard in the background shows identical black dots, so we know the artists have an attention for detail. Yet there are major differences in the other objects in the scene. The phone and keyboard are strikingly different. This points us now to the calendar as we see a major difference. One date in particular has been completely skipped in one of the scenes. I'll be referring to this calendar with the missing date as the Ned calendar from now on. We'll now do an analysis of the calendar system in order to find possible dates for the event. We already know that the calendar is blatantly showing us April. We also know that the calendar runs from Sunday to Saturday and not Monday to Sunday. April 2010 matches the Simpsons calendars in terms of the start of the month. Clearly, the next event didn't take place in April 2010. It's far more likely that the use of the April calendar in 2010 may have been a deceptive way to add a calendar to the episode. The excuse for such would be that the episode itself came out just after April, on May 2nd, 2010. Now notice again that the Simpsons calendar has 3 days in the top right corner. This is clearly an April 2010 calendar as stated previously. But suppose that the use of these calendars were not to point us to April 2010, but to emphasize the days left at the end of the month. The missing date on the Ned calendar and the later date on the Homer calendar certainly have more significance when we consider how they're highlighted in the episode. Let's grab some real calendars and start comparing them to the ones in The Simpsons. We'll be using 3 significant April calendars in order to offer a large group of possible days. We'll use April 2010, April 2011, and April 2001. You'll see shortly why the April 2001 calendar is significant. What we find when we compare the calendars with those featured in The Simpsons is a small pattern of days. These days go from April 16th to the 26th. We already know that this is very reasonable considering May Day is right around the corner. Now, taking the major theme of focusing on the clock and the mirror image of 9/11, let's take this further. From here on out, we'll omit all calendars that are identical. This leaves us with the Homer and Ned calendars only. The Ned calendar selected is specifically the one with the missing date anomaly. The calendars in the Simpsons episode appear in reverse chronologically, so if 9/11 is the mirror image of the next event, to decode the calendars, let's flip the entire episode upside down. In doing so, the Simpsons calendars flow properly through time. We start with the Ned calendar and end with the Homer calendar. Now everyone just has to see this. What is the mirror image of September the 11th? It just happens to be April 21st. September 11th is the 254th day of the year, and there are 111 days left. April 21st is the 111th day of the year, and there are 254 days left. So go back to September 2001. The mirror image of that huge event is April 21st, 2001. This is why April 2001 was also picked when comparing the calendars to the ones featured in The Simpsons. The following is very speculative, but regarding April 21st, it is extremely significant as a mirror image of 9/11. Remember that we had to flip the episode upside down so the calendars would flow through time properly. April 21st, 2001 matches exactly with the Ned calendar. April 21st is the missing date, but this is in 2001, so we can label the Ned calendar with 2001 and go forward in time to the next event. This is where the Homer calendar comes in. Going forward in time, we see that again, April 21st is an exact match, but in the Homer calendar. Based on this continued analysis, the Homer calendar is showing us April 21st, 2011, the day of the event, and this is why they featured this calendar in the train station before the explosion happened. Therefore, from all the selected days in April, the only day that satisfies the Simpsons calendars, links both 2001 and 2011 calendars together, and is a mirror image of 9/11 itself, is April the 21st. Without even these date correlations, it would be very accurate to say that such an event would take place in the latter half of April.
Can you imagine the absolute, well, I guess you can, because you're probably as shocked as the rest of the world. And I can assure you that the entire world is affected by this. There are probably at least over 5,000 people dead. At least. Minimum. It could be as high as 10 or 20,000 or even more. You see, 50,000 people work in the World Trade Center buildings, and both of them first had aircraft, large commercial type aircraft, crash into them intentionally. The entire scope of the movie was overpowering, and for most of the people of the world was completely baffling. Most people who saw that movie did not understand from beginning to end what it was that they had experienced, but they knew, everyone who saw it, knew that they had experienced something profound. That something had been communicated to the dark, deep recesses of their mind, which they did not understand, and indeed, which they were incapable of understanding. For you see, the movie was not meant for the profane, as most of us are called, by the adepts or the initiates or the priests of the mystery schools. For that movie was a message to those initiates who were well versed in the symbology and the mystery religion of an ancient religion that is practiced to this day in secret.
Now we need a location. It's important to note at this point that attempting to guess a possible location is one of the most dangerously speculative things that can be done, because regardless of its validity, it will still have an impact on those watching this video. Will my analysis cause people to fear the future? Will people take this video seriously enough to be concerned about where they live? Will some people simply take my analysis as fact? My hope is that no one watching this video answers yes to any of those questions. I did decide to include a location prediction, as I felt it had a high degree of ritual significance, especially in terms of the synchronistic manner in which I came to find it. I want to emphasize again that I have no inside information and I do not know anything about a possible future event taking place. I'm just interpreting symbolism in the media based on my own ideas and perceptions. As with everything already presented, I'll let you interpret the following for yourself and consider my conclusions purely speculative. Let's go back to the map scene in the Simpsons episode To Surveil with Love. When turned 90 degrees, the map is an identical map to one featured in the Simpsons episode earlier entitled Postcards from the Wedge, Season 21, Episode 14. The episode highlights Bart driving a train, causing the city to shake, and saying that he wants to blow up the world. A note also states that Bart is going to use the subway to destroy the city, and it includes a message, "Good luck trying to stop him before it's too late." Partway through the episode, Bart and Lisa are talking.
Hey, I would end all life on this planet just to get out of doing fractions.
Fractions aren't that hard. You just have to find a common denominator. For example, 1/2 plus 1/3 equals 3.
End all life on this planet!
Bart then references a bomb and destroying the world. Bart and Milhouse later find an old subway, as well as the map featured in the episode To Surveil with Love. This connection brings together both episodes in relation to bombs, trains, subways, and the planted map was the key. Notice too that Bart is the one driving the train in the event. While following up on clues about a location for the event, I found myself looking around quite a bit for subway city maps throughout the USA. While looking around, I noticed on Google Earth that San Francisco's downtown core has buildings that somewhat resemble the explosion scene in To Surveil with Love. I immediately found a second correlation, as San Francisco is also well known for its Twin Peaks. Notice too that they're visible in the explosion scene. I would consider the Twin Peaks to be a symbolic reference to the Twin Towers. As things weren't getting weird enough, brace yourself for this one. The Google satellite image of San Francisco's downtown core was retaken on September the 11th, 2010. As we know, the date of September the 11th is featured heavily as it stamps locations and events that will later take part in a ritual. The Pentagon is of course an example of this, as it began construction on September 11th, 1941, and as we recall, was one of the major targets on 9/11. I then started looking further for trains in the area. The correlations continue in a big way as we learn that Bay Area Rapid Transit first opened transit operations on September the 11th, 1972. And here is where everything appears to tie together. Bay Area Rapid Transit's official short form is BART, and it's pronounced BART. Could the train references in both Simpsons episodes be referring us to San Francisco, and even to the Bay Area Rapid Transit? If we take the events in the Simpsons episode literally, it certainly appears so. The episode Postcards from the Wedge highlights BART blowing things up, causing the city to shake and literally operating the train. The Bay Area Rapid Transit obviously predates the character BART. Maybe what we're looking at here is an original coincidence. It may have been monopolized on in order to symbolically tie in the location with the event with even more emphasis. Now let's go to Billboard.com and look at the top 100 songs from 2010. This list offers an incredibly symbolic and very creepy element to what we've just learned. The words California, San Francisco, and train all pop out in the top 4. And of course, heading the list is a song we're quite familiar with by now. It's Kesha's Tick-Tock, leading us all the way back to the beginning of the first episode that we analyzed. It's at this point that I want to offer another level of this analysis with 4 major points. First, a train attack and bombing may be a single event or 2 separate events. It's entirely possible that multiple dates have been selected for this event, and the Simpsons episode analysis may be just one interpretation. Although we have been focusing on April, the year might change to 2012, 13, and beyond. As we know, the final decision will come down to what the architects deem to be most appropriate. Second, notice that all the major events of the past have conspiracies within conspiracies. Like pulling back the layers of an onion, these events are designed from the ground up to compartmentalize investigators. Take the grassy knoll sniper theory, the editing of the Zapruder film, the moon landing footage, the 9/11 plane footage, and even the destruction of the towers. Researchers will argue with each other for decades over matters that were designed to mislead investigations and delay conclusions. It seems logical that the next major event will be no different. Imagine a scenario in which a small nuclear bomb goes off on a train. It would be far easier to detonate a regular bomb and have the news media convince the public that the bomb was nuclear. This would serve to further test public reaction to a nuclear attack on American soil, but without the environmental complications that come from such an event. Radiation, whether real or not real, can even be reported at the new ground zero location. And years after the event, researchers will continue to argue over whether or not a genuine nuclear bomb even went off. It's at least something to consider. And notice too that 9/11 was always referred to as ground zero. As one mirror image to the next, it stands to reason that the next event may be a real ground zero. Third, it's worthy to note that this symbolism, especially over the past few years, has been very overt in nature. The sheer volume of it made us serve to gauge how much of the public is paying attention. Maybe after the Gulf oil spill, they decided to push things even further. If one of the objectives of this symbolism is to test to see if someone could predict an event before it happens, it could serve as a useful indicator that they need to curtail their efforts and become more covert in the future. Fourth, after 9/11, there was an unprecedented increase in reactive security measures for airports. A train-related event would be the next logical step for those interested in increasing security on the ground. We have already been politically conditioned to expect that Obama will be challenged during his administration. The political climate Bush was in right before 9/11 certainly can be compared to Obama's present situation, especially in relation to approval rating polls. Bush jumped up to an alarming 90% approval immediately after 9/11. The media appears to be re-engineering this political climate for Obama.
Cabinets don't really sell things. The president himself has to reconnect with the people. Remember, President Clinton reconnected through Oklahoma, right? And the president right now seems removed. And it wasn't until that speech that he clicked with the American public. Obama needs a similar kind.
Do you think words will work for President Obama at this point?
No. Okay, he's got to get some results. But words will work, I think, if he finds that right.
There are many aspects to my analysis that I have left out in order to focus primarily on the more significant. Regardless of how accurate my analysis is, the past examples of symbolism in the media and how they relate to predicting future events should alone be an overwhelming indicator that something's up.
Look, they own the whole building. They just moved from floor to floor.
You work for them, right? You can get me in.
No, I can't.
Oh, yes, you can. You can
Tell them the police called. You gotta speak to somebody. Tell them I'm gonna blow the whistle on them. What whistle? There's no fucking whistle.
Eyewitness News has obtained exclusive video which Delaware police hope lead them to clues into the murder mystery of a former government official and Vietnam veteran. Authorities believe the man on the tape is John Wheeler, whose body was found New Year's Eve at a Wilmington landfill.
What did you do again?
Safety Inspector 7G. But no, you won't have me to protect you.
No, please. All I'm asking you to do is stay 21 more years.
You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there.
What am I doing here, Seymour? The thing I'm planning hasn't even gone off yet.
And it is gonna send us back to the Stone Age.
But how can I explain something I know nothing about? I am not cable news.
Why don't you just fucking announce that this is an inside job?
When the mainstream media keep feeding people unbalanced and heavily filtered information, it gets very difficult to not have a very skewed worldview, correct? Control the information flow, and you control the people. And I'm not just talking about the media, I'm talking about newspapers, schools, colleges, history books. Just look at what the Nazis were able to achieve in their bold propaganda tactics of big lies, big, huge lies. You don't have to go to high tech to carry out effective mind control operations the way they're doing today. Sometimes well-coordinated networking is often all you need to create a false reality for the lowly populace, you and I. When the government and the corporate media are on the same side opposite us, the general public, reality is easily what they decide it is. Most people today are kept in a bubble, surrounded by cleverly crafted illusions. It's so easy to see. But can you take it?